Hi everyone, this is Kona, and I'm going to do a really basic introduction to Minitab. So, basic introduction to Minitab. You've got, similar to many programs, you've got your basic tools going across the top. You've got additional kind of quick start buttons next down. This session window is where once you start doing any type of analysis or thing like that, you're going to get information that pops in here. You can enlarge, you can change that screen size. So if you don't need as much and you want to see more of the worksheet, you can do that. Or you can change this window if you want to see more of that session. So ultimately you can rearrange and change that size. Just so you're aware of that, you can. Also, ultimately, you can minimize. So you can minimize any of these things. If you do that, they're going to show up down here at the bottom. And then you could maximize them to get them back up. So you could minimize and then maximize. That takes you to the full screen. And then this would take you back to your partial screen. So same thing here. You could minimize. This takes you full screen. Well, that much of a full screen. And then you would have to kind of do that. So that's just kind of the basic layout. So where does the data go, right? Well, if you've used Excel at all, this is pretty similar in that your heading goes across the very top. So I guess that is slightly not like Excel, to where Excel, the number one starts right here. It would be right there in this box right there. But instead, if you notice, there's just a slight color variation. This is a little bit darker gray. This is the heading where you provide what goes in that column. So first of all, in Minitab, columns are pieces of information. So a question or a test score or whatever it is, data you're collecting, each data piece goes in a column. The rows, so like row 1, 2, 3, represents people. So let's say that we collected information on people's age and gender and whether or not they had a pet. So those are your headings. Then, person one, you ask them, how old are you, what's your gender, and do you have a pet? They said, I am 25, and I'm a female, and I don't have a pet, no pet. Okay, so then person two said, I am 18, I'm a male, and I do have a pet. Then person three said, I am 20 and male and yes to a pet as well. And then let's say we've got a 30-year-old female who doesn't. Wow, that's really bad. Sorry. So the females are old with no pets. God, that sounds awful. Let's throw one more. We'll put a youngin in there. And she does have a pet. There we go. Okay. So you see how in this case there would be 5 different people, and then they answered the question about their age, their gender, and whether or not they had a pet. Normally you would collect this data somewhere else, whether it's another survey online, whether it's a paper survey that you wrote down, and then you would come to Minitab and you would enter in this data. So you would go across for each person and then what their answer was. So something interesting to note, what does the C1 versus C2T mean? C1 means that it's column 1, and since there isn't a T, then that means that this is number data, numeric data. So yes, you can see it's a number. C2 and T means that it's column 2 and it's text data. Text data is also what? That's categorical data, or it probably is going to be categorical data. More than likely what we're, in fact, everything I think we do will be categorical data versus just like if someone wrote like an essay response or something, you normally don't put that into Minitab. So like 99 out of 100 times, if not more, the T is just referring to that it's text, which also means that it's categorical data. So here's a hint, if you're listening along, right? If there's no T, it's numeric data. If there is a T, it's categorical data, all right? Now you can switch it. So this is where it might get tricky. We can switch it. We could code things to make the female be a 1 and the male be a 2, or no be 1 and yes is 2. But for right now, the way this is entered, it is entered as text information, which is categorical. So now let's now that we've got a little bit of data we can play around with, let's go across to the top and see what we can do with some of this. So first of all, for your file, you can file and save your project or save worksheet. So what's the difference? So a worksheet is this thing right here. So this right here, see it says worksheet 1, that is just that file of information, just that chunk of information that is on this worksheet. The project, so when it says save project as, the project is everything else that you might do. So right now our project is just basically this worksheet, but what if we started doing some additional analysis? What if we did like the descriptive statistics for this, or what if we looked at how many males to females we had? Well, we would start getting some of that in this session information, or we might start getting some tables. That's the project. So the project would be not only this data, but it would be all of the other things that you have done with that data. The worksheet is just the data. So in general, you're probably going to want to save the project because you're going to want to be able to, when you open this back up later, you're going to want to be able to have, you know, the previous stuff you did. So in general, file and save as, save this as a project. When you do that, make sure that you do save it someplace you're going to be able to have access to it. Because even if you think you did the right thing, what if later you need to go back and fix something, rerun something? You always want to save what you do. So, okay, so that's your save project as. You also have open, and you also have, you can create a new project or worksheet. You could technically create a new worksheet within the same project. I don't think we ever really get to that in this class, but it is possible. So now edit. Edit is just pretty much the way most edits work in most programs. You can undo, redo, clear, delete, cut, copy, paste, worksheet links. We don't really use that. So it's pretty much just these top two kind of boxes. Whoops, sorry. For data, there's a lot of stuff you can do. In all honesty, the only thing we're really going to use is this recode right here. The purpose of this recode is, you remember how I said, what if we wanted to change gender, which right now we have as a categorical variable? What if we wanted to change that to numeric? Well, what we can do is recode to numeric. And in the box that shows up, we would pick gender. And we would say we want to recode it as individual values. And there we go, female, male. And we can now recode those. In general, with Minitab, excuse me, when it analyzes things, it might do it a little differently. So sometimes you need to come in and even just recode and change this to 2 and this to 1, just because it'll mean that it might get analyzed a little bit differently, because this would be first and this would be second. I will promise I will go into that more detail in other videos, but just kind of something to keep in your mind, that sometimes there is a reason to have one variable be 1 and one variable be 2. You then get an option to store either at the end of the worksheet, in the original column, in a specified column, in a new worksheet. For this, it just kind of depends what you're doing. For what I'm doing right now, I'm just going to do it at the end of this worksheet. And I don't need this, and I'm going to click OK. And what's going to pop up right here is recoded gender. So notice now, gender has been turned to females were 1s, males were 2s, and instead of having that T for text, it's now nothing, which means that it's a numeric variable. So that doesn't mean that you can, it doesn't mean that it's a categorical variable, or I mean, it doesn't mean that it is a full-blown numeric variable. I mean, like if you tried to say, oh no, this is numeric because I made it into a 1 and a 2. No, it's still technically categorical, but now you can run certain tests because you've made that flip to where Minitab might understand it better because it's a 1 and a 2 versus a male and a female. So just so you know that you can recode things around. You can also flip things a different way. So let's go to data, recode, and let's do it to text. So what if for age, you wanted to recode a range of values? And we want to say 0 to 20 is going to be 0 to 20. And let's say 21 to 25. And we'll just literally put 21 to 25 here. And you could call it, I mean, this, you could put text in there. So, I mean, you could call this 20 young. Medium. I'm just making stuff up just so you can see. And let's say this is 25. Oops, 25 to, how far did we go up there? We went up to 30. Okay, 25 to 30. 25 to 30. So it doesn't matter what you call it. I'm just leaving it there so you can see that I'm turning it into a categorical variable. What did I say? Oops. That'd have to be 24, wouldn't it? Because you don't want any overlap. Okay. At the end, sure. And we don't need that one. Click OK. Missing. Oh, no, we don't. So where are we missing? So both endpoints. There we go. There we go. Okay, so now we just recoded age and turned it into a categorical variable. So now we really did turn this into a true categorical variable because we've got not only the text, but this is now a category. We can't like divide this number by this number. We can't subtract these two numbers. Where we could subtract 25 minus 18, I can't subtract this one minus this one. So we really did truly turn this into a categorical variable. So for this one, we didn't truly turn it into a numeric variable, even though we can treat it as a numeric variable, where this one we really did switch it and turn it into a true categorical variable. So just showing you something that you might need to do as we're kind of moving along. So that was data, recode. Moving along, calc, there is a calculator function. I don't know how much we'll use it, so I'm not really going to go into a lot of details now. If we really go into it later, I'll do another video on it. Now stat. Stat is pretty much the main one that we are going to be using again and again and again. We're going to be using a lot of the basic stats. We're going to be using regression, ANOVA, and then we're going to be going down and doing, tables right there. So the ones that we're going to be using, basic stats, not all of these, but some of them in basic stats. We're going to be using some in regression, some in the ANOVA, and then some with the tables. So just kind of keep in mind, those are the main ones we're going to be using this semester under stat. Under graph, this is where you're going to be able to start really graphing the data and looking at it. For the purpose of this class, we're mostly going to be doing the scatter plot, the box plot, and the bar chart. Those are pretty much the three main ones that we're looking at. You could technically use some of the other ones, but in all honesty, it just seems for what purposes of this class, the scatter plot, the box plot, and the bar chart seem to pretty much do what we need it to do. And I'm going to go into all details in a completely different video on this one, but just so you can see them, see that you're aware of them. The editor, we don't really use anything in the editor window. Tools, can't think of anything we really use. I mean, if you just need a regular calculator, there's a calculator there. The windows, if you need to restore some icons, that opens all the minimized windows. So if you just really can't find something, so let's say you've got a bunch of things down here at the bottom and you're like, I just can't find something. First of all, you could come here and look for the window here. So you can say, oh, here's worksheet 1 here, or, oh, here's this table, or here's this graph. So you could find it here. You could also restore all of them, which just opens up all of those minimized windows. So if you're trying to find something in a project, you can't find it, you could come to window and look through here and see if you can find it. Help, honestly, I'm not sure how helpful the help really is. You could try the help, but it might be easier just to ask me for help. And then the same thing kind of with the assistant. It's just really not that super useful. So coming across here, you've got your open. So if you needed to open something, your save. So if you're working on something, you're like, oh man, I really need to make sure I save this for later. There's your save. You could print. In general, you just don't really print things from here. If we had something, selected, you could cut, copy, paste, undo, redo. Now here's one that I really like, and it's the last dialog. So basically what this does is it opens up the last dialog box you were using. So let's say you're doing this and you realize, oh man, I messed up on that recoded age that I just did. Instead of coming back to data and recode, you could click this and it's just going to automatically open this back up. And so that you can go in and you could change, oh, I want to extend this out to, 31 or something. And then click OK. And actually, because I didn't recode it in the same one, it just opened up a brand new one. So this is a chance that you can also highlight, then right click and delete the cells. So that's something else. You can highlight something, right click it, and there are some other, like cell properties and some stuff like this. Other than that, I don't think we really use any of the rest of these show worksheet folders. That's pretty much it. So this is kind of your brief introduction. I know it's not hugely brief, but I hope you found it useful. I hope you're feeling a little bit better about Minitab and how it works. And I promise we'll go into more detail and help you feel more comfortable in the next videos.